How many people we got on the call with us?
So far, we've got 10 people listening in. There's 73 registered. So we'll see if people
Wow.
are late or not, and we'll pop it in. There we go. That means we're official. And see how we get this thing started. So welcome, everybody. Happy, what are we in, the fourth Thursday of the month? We're doing some Meet the Mega Agent series, continued it on, been doing a little over a year now. So I love it for purely selfish reasons because I get to talk and hang out with some really smart people from across the country. So we're continuing this on here today. For those of you guys who are first on the phone call today, it's going to be me interviewing our guest, and our guest today is Haro. Did I say your name correctly, Haro?
Not at all, but that's okay. Haro.
Haro. There you go.
Most people just skip the last name.
I gave it a shot. I gave it a good effort. I appreciate you a lot being on here. Remember that you and I, we've been Facebook friends for several years now, and I've been watching you, and you just absolutely killed it in the last 2 or 3 years. And it's funny because you said you would. Do you remember when I first started doing these and asked who would be a great person, and you said talk to me about a year from now? Do you remember when you did that?
No, I can see myself saying that, but I don't remember saying that.
It was probably about 18 months. I was on one of the the Mega Agent Facebook groups, and I said, who would be a great person? You said, Rick, I'm not there yet, but come back to me in a year. And sure enough,
nice.
Here you are. So those of you guys who are listening on there, you're going to see a little communication spot on your panel for questions, and I want you to, if you do have any questions, go ahead and put it right there. That way, once Haro and I are done talking, usually about 30 to 45 minutes, I'm going to open it up, give you guys a chance to be unmuted, and do some Q&A. Does that work for you, Haro?
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Well, I want to brag you a little bit from Greenville, South Carolina. So before we get started there, everyone listening is going to have a referral go to Agent Source. This is also going to be up on my YouTube page, so you guys can take a look at it there and archive it. Haro, is my information correct? Level 6, and you've done it in 4 years?
Yeah. So really, the team started in 2012, 11, yeah, 4 years.
Okay.
3 to 4 years.
And then doubled your team size in 2014. So we're going to go, and before we get into 2014, learn about it, but just want to validate what we hear on there. You doubled your size, 185 units and 30 million, which is absolutely incredible. And now you've got a goal to double that again to 330.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to hear about that, how it's going through the first quarter. Before we get involved with that, if you could give us just a Cliff Note version of your background, whether it's education or how long you've been in real estate, what brought you into real estate, and tell me about that first year in real estate, of your successes, your trials, your failures.
Yeah, so I came into real estate in 2009, May, as a buyer's agent on another team. I had already been in sales, and I had it might be worth at some point, depending on where the conversation goes, but I had another career that was really good preparation for my career in real estate previously.
And what was that career?
Master. That's where. Well, let's go down that road. So,
okay.
as a young naive college freshman that had to pay for college on his own, I overheard a young lady talking to one of my buddies from my hall, from my dorm, about an internship program where she had made $14,000 the previous summer, and I just was fired up. And I said, wow, if it's legal, I'd like to do that, whatever it is. I don't really know much about it. So come to find out, it was selling educational books door to door during the summertime. Like, you'd go to the company would put you and a whole bunch of other kids in this, like, a corner of a state, let's say. You'd have a county assigned to you, and your job was to go knock on every door in that county and find out if, make an attempt at selling a book or several. So to fast forward, I mean, my first summer I made $10,000. My second summer I made $20,000. And to fast forward, I graduated from college, went to work in banking, and then after about a year up in Chicago in the finance industry, I said, I'm done with this, and I really liked the mentorship and leadership of that other company, the culture. I'd like to go back there. So I spent another 6 years with them. I recruited sales teams, and I was a top salesperson, had top teams for several years. So sometimes a lot of people look at what I've done in real estate and just, assume that just happened, and that's just not the case. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears previous to even getting into the industry. So fast forward 2009, I get in real estate. First year, I'm a buyer's agent on another mega agent team. Closed 30 deals in the first 12 months, which in '09, that was he had like 6, 7, 8 agents on his team at the time. I was number 1 within my first 12 months.
Wow.
And then we parted ways, and I immediately hired my first assistant. That was late 2010. She didn't work out. 2011, I had a part-time assistant that worked from home, closed 36 units. 2012, I hired a full-time assistant at the end of 11. So 12 was me. Started with me and a full-time assistant, ended with me, 2 assistants, and a buyer agent. And we closed 50 units in 12. In 13, we started the year with 4 people, finished with 7. Closed 124 units, and then 2014 started the year with 7, finished with 12, 185 units, and then we just added number 13, and we're making 2 offers this week to inside salespeople, which would be 14 and 15. And our goal is to double our GCI. I used to talk about our goals in terms of units, and sometimes that's the easiest thing to talk about is units, just because it's a smaller, easier, granular number. But we did $1 million in GCI last year, and our goal is to do $2 million this year.
Congratulations.
And right now, first quarter, if everything closes in March, it's supposed to, is exactly 2 times what last year's first quarter was.
So you're going to look at about $500,000 here, first quarter.
No, 16% of our volume was done in first quarter last year. So right now, last year's first quarter was 152,000. Right now we've got, 156,000 GCI.
Got it.
This year's first quarter, again, if everything closes in March, right now is projected to be at 315,000.
Great job. Great job. There you go. Call's done. Now I want to dive into that because that's an incredible story. So I want to ask you right now, because we have all sorts of different makes and models on here, from the people who currently have their team or have been licensed for several years, or maybe someone who's never been licensed before and is just learning from that. What do you think, knowing you've got extensive background with the book and the sales and the cold prospecting and door knocking, it sounds like you understood language of sales before you even got into real estate. What do you attribute being that number 1 agent on this team walking into it in those first 12 months? What did you have? What was that it factor, or perhaps the perseverance that you had that others didn't and still don't?
I knew I was going to do well. That same mindset that I had in that conversation with you of, hey, talk to me in a year. That's just how I've lived. That's just how I knew I was going to do well. Secondly, I had a wife and a new baby. We needed to buy a house. I was renting at that time, and I think number 2 was due or something like that. So we had wife, new baby, another baby coming, and then I'm just a competitor. I don't like being second. Even back to college days, I had one teacher as a freshman that would post grades by your student ID number, like you wouldn't put names. It was just it was a huge class by student ID number, and I would always go and see where I stacked up against other people.
Yep.
I loved looking at those rankings. It's
that competitive
how I was.
So you were on the team, and it sounds like doing extremely well in the team. And I don't know if it was personal or if it was business. What made you go off on your own? What did you see, or what happened that you said, you know what, I'm going to go off and create my own team?
I had no need to do that. I still joke some days. I was totally fine being in someone else's organization, and so long as we could build together and I could get to where I wanted to go within that organization. But as we got into it, we just had some differences of opinion on some things, and eventually we just made the decision that it'd be better to be to separate than apart. Sometimes I'm still sad about that, because if anyone that's on this call knows the dynamics of our market, that that team and this team now compete for number one. So it's, in our marketplace, in Keller Williams, there's a couple other brokerages that have teams that are pretty good. But within Keller Williams, I'm competing with that team for number one. Gosh, imagine if we had stayed together, what would be going on?
What could have been. So it sounds like at the time, a little bit different vision, a little bit different concepts. You said, you know what, let's go be separate there. So then in the 4 years, you said, I'm going to do this myself.
And mind you, he and I are investors in another market center together. And his downline, we're always going to be tied together.
Sure. Which is nice, because not every split or breakup works out with still being in partnership at the capacity. So congratulations for that. Now tell me about you coming out with zero in your pipeline, not a new agent, yet new and building your own business, and the first thing you did was hire an assistant?
Yeah, so I got out, and I just said, maybe not the first thing, maybe it was like 2 months.
Sure, but
2 months later, it was tough, because here's the deal, back then as a buyer's agent, I had leads fed to me. I never had to work on listings. I didn't have to figure out anything. And now I'm on my own. I don't know how to take a listing. I don't have any source of buyer leads. Honestly, the KW family came around me, and people were giving me leads left and right that they couldn't work and stuff like that. So that was really cool. Plus, I had some clients left from when I was working on the team, but I closed those out at the team was still taking their share of the commission. So it was really hard, but I just got to, 2 months into that, and I was like, I do not want to, on the team, all I knew getting into real estate was that I don't do closings and I don't enter listings, and I've never done a closing and I've never entered a listing. I think I have, just so I know what the team members were doing back then. Right. But just generally speaking, I haven't done that stuff, and so immediately I knew, I quickly got the idea of keeping focused on activities that were dollar productive.
Gotcha.
And so I said, let me hire somebody, and the person I hired was my best friend from high school's mother, who wanted to get into real estate. She's now a buyer agent on another team. She's a high I, not the right fit for an assistant. But we worked together, and this is how we worked it out. I said, I will pay you when I get paid. So when a deal closes, I'll go backwards and pay you everything I owe you. And she was okay with that.
Okay.
So that worked well for 4 months.
So she's kind of like a transaction coordinator with you don't pay me unless I get paid. Yet she did a lot more than that, more of your right hand person. It sounds like.
She did, and she was fine for 4 months, and we made it work. And 4 months in, we decided, and she knew, and I knew that you're not who needs to be an agent. Meanwhile, at the same time, and there was someone coming off one of the other teams in the market center that was going into nursing school, so she didn't want to work full-time anymore, but she wanted some part-time stuff. So I said, listen, I will pay you, I can't remember what it was, $200 for a buyer closing, $100 for a seller closing, and $100 for every listing I have for you to enter it, and then give me updates once a month, once a week.
Okay.
I can send to my clients. So that was Lisa. And Lisa did that, and we worked together that entire year. I did 36 units that year. That was 2011.
Yep.
And that was great. That was great. At the end of 2011, Lisa needed to go into full-time for school in the spring. I knew what my goals were. Those two goals were not, we didn't have alignment of our visions. And she understood, and I understood, and I needed to go find someone full-time. So that's what I did.
So in 2012, really in just 3 years then, and you still have the next hire, in the 2012 hire?
So in 2012, in late 11 to early 12, I think it was late 11, I was like, who am I going to hire for an assistant? Now, mind you, I haven't yet really even plugged into KW at this time. I didn't know what Recruit Select was. I had no idea about all that stuff. So I just looked around, and there's this young lady that went to our church that was a mother's helper for my wife and had 3 other part-time jobs. I said, well, we can trust her with our children. I wonder, why couldn't I trust her with my business? And I had observed her enough to know that, she was more the profile of someone that, like an S or a C, that needed to be on the administrative side of the business. So I just said, listen, why don't you quit all 3 of those jobs? My wife's probably going to kill me for stealing her help. But why don't you come to work for me, and here's your job description. Keep me selling and document everything. Go.
That was the job.
That was it. That was it.
So let me ask you a question. Have you been to Bolden, Haro?
Yeah.
All right. So you know in the narrative that Danica Koska says, what's that?
2 or 3, 4. I can't remember how many times now.
So you're familiar with the narrative where Danica Koska says this is her life story, and afterwards she always says, "What did I learn? This is the lesson." So as you went through the failed assistant, the part-time assistant, finding someone else, what are the lessons that you learned that some other people who are going through that growing pain right now can do or not do from your mistake or your success? What's the lesson?
See, the thing is sometimes people look at that and say those are mistakes. The beauty was those people were the right person at the right time for what my business was doing.
Yep.
For where I was, the first one, her name is Kathy. That was, I was like, okay, this is how I hired her. We can call 4 months of failure, but I know that I don't need a high I.
Well, we call it failing forward.
Right. So then move forward. Lisa, I don't even know that there was a mistake there.
Yep.
She was perfect for the year that I did 36 transactions. She worked from home, contract basis, per transaction deal. It worked perfectly. We had good communication, which was key, so it wasn't a surprise when she needed to leave. And then I was like, all right, I need a full-time person, so I hired Abby. Now, looking backwards, what did I do intuitively there? Mind you, remember, this is you're talking to someone that had already hired sales teams before. I had already made lots of hires, so I'd made a lot of mistakes already. Back in the old days before real estate, I'd interviewed over 500 people in that job, recruiting. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't brand new to this. I didn't know how to hire admin people. I was a little bit different, but I picked it up pretty quickly. So Gary Keller always says, don't ever hire someone you don't know. Well, Abby was a known quantity to me. I knew I could trust her. I knew she'd work hard. So I felt like it was a safe bet for what we needed to do in 2012. So I hired her, and we started moving forward. Oh, and then in 2012, I also called an old mentor, one of the sales trainers for the past company I'd worked with, and I knew he did some independent consulting on the side, and I asked him if he'd be my coach. And so for a year and change, he was my coach. Non-real estate, not maps, but he was my coach, and he really helped me through this. So I mean, I'm making very forward-looking decisions at an early on.
Did you have that 5-year vision of in 2015 I want to close $2 million in GCI back then, or were you not even thinking that big yet?
I don't even think I was thinking that big. I knew. I guess my heart is I always know it's going to be big. This is going to sound weird because this is not what most people would say. Write it down, have a goal, and I have those, but I just knew it was like I knew what I had created before, and I knew what I wanted to create. And I didn't really think about the numbers. I just thought about a really fun organization of people working together, and I knew we were going to go in that direction.
Okay.
And me and Joe, my first coach, would talk about one day, Haro, there's going to be a line out the door, people wanting to work at the Haro group. Well, guess what's happening? There's the line out the door, people knocking, wanting to work with us.
You've created that culture. Well, and when I said lessons, I think it's also lessons of validation. What I heard you say was your job is to do that activities that are money-making, producing activities. And I love your job description because as I have agents who are hitting that ceiling of doing 24, 36, 40 units a year and feeling like they can't keep up or grow, yet they're almost too fearful to hire someone for the fear of the training, and I don't know how to train somebody. Tell me about, if you were to give advice to a single agent right now who just hired their first assistant, in your experience, what has been the best training process? Do you follow train, lead, motivate to a T? Do you throw them in the deep end, let them swim? Tell me about that process of what you learned or what you
now we definitely follow the train, lead, motivate from the RSTLM. In fact, I'm an approved mega TLM trainer myself. we follow that, and then we leverage the heck out of what Keller Williams offers. I've put every assistant that our team has hired has gone through the perfect real estate assistant program that Monica Reynolds does. We have all the printouts. So we do that, and we leverage the training that's available through KW as much as possible.
And
I just don't have to do the heavy lifting. And
yeah.
and the thing that I think sometimes is hard for people to understand is the things that I'm not good at and don't like to do. Like, there are actually legitimately people on the planet that like to do those things. That's what they enjoy, and while I would hate a salary, they love a salary.
Right. Well, and that's behavioral profile. So I know we have some people who might not understand the language of DISC and AVA yet, so that'll be a different series. What is your DISC and AVA?
I don't know. I think DI or ID. Under pressure, I think the D shows up when I'm relaxed, which I'm more relaxed now than I've been the last 5 years. You see a whole lot more of my eyes show up. On the AVA, it's a 7913.
So the mega agent behavioral profile there.
Mega agent or team leader, really.
Right. Yeah, one and the same. So let me ask you, because in 2012 to 2013, you went from 50 to 124. That's a huge leap. Tell me about some of those.
Yeah, that was a huge leap.
That to me puts you in a different category. That likely puts you somewhere around the 15, even $20 million mark.
Yeah, that was. We went from 8 million to 21 million in 1 year.
What kind of growing pains did you experience, and how did you stay so forward-thinking and not get caught up to reactive leadership, but also always proactive leadership? Because a lot of people would have been stuck at 8 million and put out fires, yet you busted right through that. Tell me about that mindset that you had to have that differentiates you.
So finding good people was part of that. So in 2012, on our way to 50, I had hired Abby at the end of 2011 in preparation for 2012. And by mid-2012, I did what I would not recommend, is go ahead and I hired 2 BAs at the time. One didn't make it after about a month and a half or 2. The other one is still with me today. In fact, he's our VP of Sales and Marketing now. So there's a couple of storylines here. Let me back up. Here's a lesson, and then I'll continue the story. The lesson is, don't hire a BA until you've got 2 great full-time admin in place. If I had to build it all over again, I would do that. We still suffer from the fact that we did not have 2 great full-time admin in place for a little while.
I'm gonna have you dig deeper in that, because I hear that lesson from people who have been there, done that all the time. Yet no matter how often you say it to these agents who are doing it the first time, they don't hear it. So dig deeper. What was the pain that makes you say that was such a valuable lesson you learned?
There's 2 things here. There's 2 lessons there. One is to really get clarity on where you want the business to go in the long run. I think that then backwards informs everything else on how you do it. The pain is, Rick, I don't have an 8x8 system set up. I don't have a 33 touch set up. I don't even have a legitimate database set up. And we did 185 units last year. That because we've done so much production the last couple of years and we've just flown. Had I in the beginning set that up, we probably would have gone further. But I'm not someone that knows how to slow down, and I don't know that I mean, mind you, 2012 the market's beginning to get better. You've got a rock star buyer's agent in 2012 who closes 70 units by himself. That was a lot of the growth right there.
Yep.
It was also me handing over the buyer side completely. It was late summer 2012. I'm working with a buyer. I'm running the team. I'm still learning how to list properties because I don't really know how to do that very well yet. I'm working with this one buyer, and I just stopped and I was like, oh my gosh, I am doing an awful job for this guy. Absolutely awful. This is not up to my standards. And I looked at him. This is the last buyer I ever worked with. I said, Mike, I want to apologize to you. I have not done a good job for you. It used to be that all I worked was with buyers, and I was really good at it, and I was able to give you focused attention, but I've not been able to do that. I hired Moses a while ago to start taking over this for me, and he's actually going to be a better fit for you to help you get the house that you need. So I'm going to have him finish this process with you, and I apologize for, and Moses finished it out, closed it out. Mike's a past client. But that was a really good lesson for me right there, because I saw that, and this happened again recently on the listing side. I've given away the listing side now too. And the last few listing clients I worked with, I think I might have one still that feels like they're tied to me. And they just have not gotten great service because I just don't have bandwidth for it. There's just no way with everything else that we've got going on and the foundation we're laying for expansion, and there's some other things going on that I just don't have bandwidth to deal with that. So we hired a listing specialist mid last year, and she runs the listing department right now.
Well, there's two things I want to say to congratulate you for that, because it takes huge business maturity. It's very familiar, very similar to Gary Keller back in the 1990s when he fired himself up and said, I've got to get out of the way because I'm not doing the job that my vision deserves. And that's how Mo Anderson came in. A lot of people would have had a pride or maybe a fear of releasing and relinquishing control. And you both did it, and with that, it happened. And then number two, my coach is Mike Fleming, and as all his opportunities with expansion and MAPS coaching, all these are coming up. He gave me some amazing advice, which you already realized. Just because we're capable does not mean we have the capacity.
Right.
And I think that's what you just did.
That's a great one. Yeah, so I'm writing that one down.
I've used it over and over again because that's so true. There's so many opportunities within this company. You have to find that first domino, say, what's the first thing I'm going to do? And by doing that, you gave away listings. So kudos for that.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to 2012, because that's kind of where we were in the story, it was just giving those buyers away. It's because you were asking, how did we grow so much in 2013? Well, was saying, listen, I've got a specialist that's actually better at this than I am now. Like, I used to be good at this because that's all I was doing. Now I'm not.
Yeah.
Because it's not all I'm doing. And I want someone to serve you that it's all they do.
You're extremely purposeful. You're looking from day one of the second month when you said, I am no longer able to do that. What are the habits that you've created and now starting off as disciplines, now are habits, that really separates you? Because what you've done in such a short time does put you in the top percentile. So if someone else needed to adapt those habits, what would they need to do? What are some things that you do on a daily basis?
Wow, that's a great question. Help me fill in the gap there a little bit, because I don't know that I fully understand.
All right, so what is your, and that maybe not now because I want to take through different areas, but your job description, you've been very purposeful, and you're not afraid to go out and make a hire and to get out of the way. And I really feel that's the biggest hindrance that people have. Either they fear that they do it better, or they fear that they won't be able to justify and be able to make up the difference. I can't hire a buyer's agent because if I don't have buyers, I won't make my money. Yet you're able to just go out and do it cold turkey. So you have this discipline. Maybe it's, you know your numbers. Are you a cold caller? Are you a prospector? What gives you that confidence that other people don't have to be able to just get out of the way?
I guess a part of it is that part of it is who I am behaviorally, right? Like I'm a low vector 3. I love variety. Like it's really hard for me to do the same job day in, day out forever and ever and ever and ever. Amen. Like I can't even envision that.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing 10 years from now is going to look completely different than what I'm doing today. What can I tell you? I'm also a high vector 2, so it's probably going to involve a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So behaviorally, I think these are not, and I'm also not on the vector 4. I'm not a high conformist, so I'm not a high perfectionist. So I don't have a high need for details to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where some people get stuck, and it's not. And when I say stuck, like I don't want to talk about it as a negative thing. Like you got to figure out your behavior is how you'll succeed. It's not whether or not you'll succeed. It's just how you're going to succeed. So for me, behaviorally on Vector 4, I'm a low Vector 4, so I'm very big picture. I'm free to act. We just move forward, and I'm not the details are not something I think about a lot. I have a master's in economics, so I do have an analytical streak in me. So that's there. The other thing is I genuinely get a lot of pleasure out of watching other people grow and succeed. So that's part of it for me because, I mean, you think back to what I did in the book selling days when I was recruiting college kids to go do – if you think selling books door-to-door is hard, try recruiting people to go sell books door-to-door. That's even harder. But to me, the joy I got out of that – and I had a great mentor. That's one of the reasons I stayed with that company so long. I had a mentor that really poured into me. I'm like the most impactful mentor I've ever had is easily – his name's Glenn. And I just watched that guy pour his life out for these college kids, some of who were just snotty-nosed, arrogant, had no appreciation for what he was doing. But for me, it was a lot of fun to take a kid that had never sold anything before, take him through this week-long sales training, and go put him out there selling books door-to-door and watch him make $10,000 in the summer. And they were working 80 hours a week away from home on straight commission. Like, that was a blast for me. So that kind of got me hooked. And so to today, I've got 13 people on the team, of which one, who is a part-time assistant transaction coordinator, has had any real estate experience before they joined our team.
And is that intentional? Do you go after people who don't have any good or bad habits?
It's not fully intentional. I wouldn't, if it was the right person, I wouldn't not look at somebody that was from real estate. But certainly there's a little bit more fun to me. It's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder thing, a little bit of David and Goliath thing of I'm going to build a kick-ass team with people that have no real estate or sales experience. Like our listing specialist joined us last May. She had been in a marketing role at a real estate firm across town for about a year, 3 years ago, Coldwell Banker. Now she's with us, and she's taken, hold on one second, 91 listings in the last 6 months.
Whoa, amazing.
Yep. Now we have an inside sales team that sets appointments for her.
Sure.
That helps, but she converts them.
Sure. But I'm glad you said ISA because that was really a flavor of the month at this last reunion. So it's the new sexy position, right? Tim Hale's completely blown it up over there in Austin. Is ISA new to you? When did you hire your first ISA?
So I found a talent in the middle of 2013. Her name was Anna. And some on my team would argue that I hired her too soon, that we couldn't afford her just yet. I office with Moses, our VP of sales, and he just heard me say that, and he's laughing. And she had, again, here was someone I knew, also someone I went to church with, and she had been in phone consultative sales for University of Phoenix. She was an enrollment advisor, and she had done that for 6 or 7 years. She had done training for them for that role, and she had been one of their top performers. She quite literally, we were going through the recruit select process, and we had just stopped because she wasn't ready to make the jump. But little did I know that she and God were talking, and she said, God, if you want me to work with the Haro group, you're going to have to get me fired or lay me off for that to happen. Well, lo and behold, the next day she got laid off.
Wow.
And she called me, and because I don't know if I had made a full offer at that point yet or not, and she told me the story, and we brought her on. Her first role was to kind of help develop a systems and procedures manual, and then we got her onto the phones. She started with, it was kind of a interesting onboarding process, but long story short, she's now our lead ISA. She's been very involved in the training of, we're using the ISA program 2 ways. One is for permanent ISAs that will be always on the phones, primarily outbound listing prospecting. We will at some point hire an inbound buyer lead nurturing type of, but that's not our priority right now.
Yep.
But we're also using it as this is how we're going to get people launched into a BA or an LS.
Yep. And let me fill in the blanks for some initials real quick. ISA is an inside sales agent. You also have an OSA for outside sales. Pretty much, it's that.
And I'm using the term interchangeably. I apologize. When I say ISA for our team, it has meant OSA, which is an outbound telemarketer role.
So calling the for sales by owners expires, prospecting to people you don't know.
Yes, that's what they've been doing.
Versus the ISA would be calls that come in that you then can convert and then set the appointments for somebody else.
Which, when you break it down with that distinction, we don't have an ISA, but we have currently 2 OSAs.
OSAs, perfect.
And we're hiring 2 more OSAs right now. One of the OSAs is going to become a listing specialist, I believe.
Sure. How do you pay?
He was hired as a ramp up, using that as a ramp up. Originally, we were thinking about a buyer's agent for him, but we really want to lead with listings, and I'd rather have more firepower on the listing side right now, and we'll figure out buyers later.
Sure. I mean, the listings create the buyers. How do you pay them just for people who want to go down that path and not sure what that structure looks like? Because it is still a fairly new and figured out concept. Are they salary? Are they commission? Are they blended?
It's a blend. You know, for us, we're paying them $2,000 a month salary, and you know, there's models out there. People pay 5% on the back end, a flat dollar figure on the back end, 10% on the back end. We settled at 7.5.
Gotcha.
That was kind of a little bit of a price point thing that drove that. We you know, our average price is about, in our markets, 170 to 180. Last year, our average closed commission for our team was $5,000.
Yep. Identical down here.
We wanted to make the ISA role an attractive one financially for people that didn't want to work more than a regular 40-hour work week. If you want to work more than 40-hour work week, we got an LS role, a listing specialist role, or a buyer agent role. You can make more money. But we still wanted the ISA role to be one, hey, you can make 70, 80 grand being a phone salesperson, ISA or OSA for our team.
Yep. So I got a couple more questions. As I'm doing this for about 5 more minutes, I want people who are listening, if you guys have some phone calls, please start typing them in, and I'll jump on there. I'm sitting in Recruit Select, Growth Recruit Select with Seth Campbell about 3 months ago. And he said something that really made a lot of sense. He says, in sales, you can get all the sales training you want, yet there's still a lid on your income. Yet when you learn how to master hiring people, then it becomes unlimited, yet leading and motivating people is when you get that retention and growth that becomes self-managed. So your leadership skills, you can tell because you have a team, like you said, with a waiting list of people who want to be there, and people are leaving jobs to come work with you. Is that a natural leadership, or if I'm an agent and I want to enhance or increase my leadership, what would you recommend I read, I talk to, I attend? What would help my leadership and ability to manage, lead a team?
Yeah, you know, I'm like a seminar and conference junkie. I seek mentorship regularly. You know, Seth Campbell probably gets tired of me. I'm pinging him all the time, asking him questions, and he's not the only one. You know, I know this sounds crazy, but at one point I was like, you know, I'm tired. I'm not getting the answers I want from people. I'm just emailing Gary, and I emailed Gary. I mean, I'm voracious about finding out, and Gary responded, FYI. I'm just voracious about finding the answers I need. I'm standing here in my office right now, and I have literally, I'm looking at 90 different books. I read, I go to seminars, RSTLM, been a bunch of times, said, hey, what's the best way to learn something? Teach it. So I went and got certified to teach it, and I'm teaching Mega RS for the first time next Monday up in Charlotte.
Congrats.
So all that's there. The thing that I like, sometimes people get like hung up and they get frustrated with themselves, and it's like, you know what? Don't do that. This is a journey, and remember that my journey in this started years ago, before I got into real estate. with doing that crazy job. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to go sell books door to door. Everyone has their own path, but it's a journey and it's a process. And embrace where you are in the process. Love people and just commit to growth. The 6 personal perspectives. Just commit to that stuff and keep going.
Yep.
It's going to come. Read, listen to stuff. I mean, for years I would listen to training CDs in my car. I still do. Except that I live right next door to my office, so I don't have much opportunity to be in my car anymore. So
because you're not going on appointments anymore. How do you
I don't go on appointments anymore. Yeah.
How have you and do you overcome the slow down to hurry up? John Davis said that at family reunion, that you've got to slow down, find the models, find the people, and then go rip the lid off of it. So I find that with a lot of my agents who need to help, need to hire, and when I tell them to go to Recruit Select, they don't have 2 days because they're fearful of losing business. What do you tell them, or how have you overcome that need to constantly go, to stop and slow down?
One thought just hit me as you said that is, are you living below your means? Because if you need business that bad that you're not able to take 2 days away to make this is the American mindset too, right? It's I want it now as opposed to playing the long game. Like, would you rather $5,000 today or put yourself in a position that where you're not, or let's say the average agent around the country has conversations every day. Here's a great aha. Man, my mind is working right now. So I had dinner with Joe Rothschild, and if you don't know who Joe Rothschild is on the call, he's his team's top 10 in KW for the last several years. He owns several market centers. He was #1 with Remax for years before he came to KW. And I was sitting at dinner with Joe Rothschild and some other people, and what I realized is, this is back when I was still on the listing side, is Joe has conversations. Wait, let me back up. Haro, when he has conversations with people, and they're in a capacity that could lead to a deal of some sort, they're $10,000 conversations at best. If I'm having a listing conversation, it could yield $10,000. And I'm sitting there talking to Joe, and it's clear to me that Joe is searching for, he may not have said these words, but Joe is searching for conversations that lead to $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, how do I bridge the gap from the conversations I'm currently having to get into the place where I can have conversations like that? And I think part of how you get there is having the realization that you're not having those conversations. Does that make sense? Like,
I'm writing it down. I love it.
A switch flipped in my brain that day, and I was like, okay, I want to have conversations. If I'm going to have an hour-long conversation with one person, it could lead to a listing for $10,000, or an hour-long conversation with another person that could lead to a business venture that could yield me $100,000 a year for the next 30 years. I'd rather have the second kind.
Right. It's got to get out of your own way. Taking a look at that 10,000 level view. Dave Ramsey says his favorite book is Tortoise and the Hare because the tortoise always wins.
Well, and so back to your question of why when agents say, "Hey, I can't go spend 2 days." One of the challenges here is people want now money versus later money. And I mean, even today, Rick, I'll just be really transparent. I mean, our team is not that profitable. I told you what our average commission is. Man, that's tough. It's really tough on margin. If our average commission was at the 7,500 that's in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, I'd be hitting that 35% profitability all day long because our expenses are already paid. But it's 5,000.
Right.
And so at 5,000, that really squeezes margin. But you know what? I'm building something here that when we start expanding, and what we've got going here is going to be the foundation for. I mean, we'll see what happens. And you know what? If it all falls apart 2 years from now, it's fine. I've still learned a million lessons along the way, and whatever happens next will go that much faster.
Yep.
So that's the other thing is, let me back up one other thing. Detachment from the outcome is huge. If I need to be successful, and I have to talk to myself about this regularly, if I have a need to be successful, it's like the guy that needs a girlfriend and can't get one. You follow me?
100%.
If I'm not attached to that outcome, but I'm serious about serving the people around me on my team and creating an atmosphere where they're serious about serving our clients and taking, what does Zig say? If you help enough other people get what they want, you get what you want.
Yep.
And it's not by thinking about what you want, leading with that. It's about thinking, hey, how can I help these people get what they want? And then, again, not being attached to the outcome is huge. Because if you need to be successful, then the success is, you may still get it. Like, you may still get it, but it may come at a different cost. Whereas if you're detached from it, but still want to do an excellent job in whatever you do, then that becomes even more fun, because if your success or lack of success doesn't define you, if your definition is elsewhere and not in your success, I know I'm getting a little bit deep here and we need to get to questions, but if your success or lack of success is not your identifying your definition, then you're actually free to do a much better job.
So to recap on that, because I followed, just want to make sure you recap. And when people have, to call that struggling agent, when you need to make the sale, otherwise you may not know how to pay your rent, you start reeking of desperation. And that's when you do things for you and not for your client. So being unattached to the outcome says, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear that's best for you. If I get paid or not get paid, or get the listing or not get the listing, and just by having those has actually made you go further, what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so there's an interesting point in what you just said, in that if you're so desperate for that one to work out, what I'm hearing in your words is you're not lead generating, and you're not. When Gary said from stage at Family Reunion, it's a moral imperative to lead generate. It is a moral imperative to lead generate. You need to get on the phone, and there are people that need you. You offer better service than X% of realtors in town, and people need you. And you have a moral imperative lead generate. And the moral imperative lead generate also works in that the more you lead generate, the more options you got for listings and buyers, so that it's really helpful. And I've said this in a listing appointment before to people. I've said, listen, I need sellers. I need people to sell their houses with us, but I don't need any one person. So I know this may come across a little bit weird, but I don't need you to sell your house with us. So
right.
Let's just have a conversation. Because I'm going to get plenty of people to sell their houses with us. It's just going to happen. So whether or not this particular one works out, it really matters not to me. And that, I think you got to take that same mindset into the whole business building as well.
Well, and you just define living in abundance and not living in scarcity.
Yeah.
What are some of the classes and people that have been defining moments for you because of your convention and class and mentor junkie? So if you can name the top 2 or 3 classes and top 2 or 3 perhaps conversation, it sounds like Joe Rothschild is one of them. What are there that people need to go and do, experience?
RSTLM all day long, as many times as you can possibly do it. I mean, I've flown clear across the country to take that class. And it's required of anyone that's going to hire on our team that they take it twice a year. So that's RSTLM, that's probably number 1 and number 2.
There's 3 classes there, so that'd be 3 too.
Yeah, that is, right? There's RS, there's action training, and then there's leadership and motivation. So yes, that one is, it's a big chunk. It's a big investment. But gosh, it's one that just pays off in spades.
Yeah.
And we just chunked down $4,000 for 1, 2, 5 of our team members to fly up to Maryland next week and take TLM with Seth Campbell. Because we've got a whole bunch of hires coming on in the next couple months, and we need people that are trained in TLM and they understand what we're doing.
Yep.
There's one line item for us that's out of whack, and that's education. I mean, we spend a ton of money on my team on education. We spent, oh gosh, I think it was $60,000 last year just on educational events. Now, a lot of that's me because I'm going to stuff, but them too.
Yeah. Good for you. Another question on here, some people new to Keller Williams. RSTLM stands for Recruit, Select, Train, Lead, and Motivate. and it's when you're looking to grow and attract the talent of the right behavior to be the right person, the right seat of the bus. I love what you said earlier. It's not will you succeed, it's how will you succeed in making.
Yeah, I was looking over my notes yesterday from when I was taking the certification course on teaching Mega RSTLM, and there was a story told about a team leader that was like I think it was like a 3, 4, 4, 9-star.
Okay.
And he had been a Mega agent selling over 100 houses a year, and he became a team leader, and he had done a really good job. I think he was actually right there in the class now that I'm remembering it, and it done a really solid job as a team leader. Hey, it's not whether or not you'll succeed, it's how you're going to succeed.
It's how you'll succeed. Well, I interviewed Martin Bauma about a month ago out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. And
I love Martin.
He's a low 1, low 2, and he's GCI $2 million the last 4 years in a row. So
he's low 1. I didn't realize he was low 1. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Martin, I call Martin the German engineering of real estate. He's like the BMW, the Mercedes of. I mean, he's so strategic and precision. Like he's just he's the engineer. He's the German engineer of real estate.
I love it. Well, we're wrapping up here. We've had a couple of questions come through there, but it's mainly been technical stuff. So let me wrap up the phone call and ask you one final question. So to wrap it up,
and I've got a couple extra minutes. I've got a coaching call at 4:15.
Okay. So if they roll in here,
if there's anything that anyone else wants to ask, I'm game. I'm wide open.
Perfect. And your information's on there as well, so for the follow-up stuff. You focused on the activities. You're not attached to the outcome. You know what you do well, you know what you don't do well, and as soon as possible, you hire someone else to do it. When you hire them, you're leveraging the coaching, the models, Monica Reynolds, all the education, so you don't have to go and reinvent and teach it, because frankly, you're pretty bad at it anyway, because it's not your strong suit, and it's other people's strong suit. You've got the big vision. You keep moving towards that vision, and you're very clear. So as someone who's running the team, what are the standards that I have to follow if I'm on your team? What is the expectations or standards that if I'm going to work on the Haro Group, this is what's expected of me?
I mean, we got a whole list of them.
Is there a job description for the buyer's agent, the listing agent that?
Yeah. So buyer's agents, their minimum standard is 15 contacts a day, 5 days a week. They've got to write at least 4 contracts a month and close 3 contracts a month.
Okay.
To stay on the team. And it's kind of a rolling 3-month average. Listing specialists got to take minimum 10 listings a month. ISA.
Do you care how and when they make those contacts? Or are you saying just get it done, show me the results?
No, we actually have a very structured morning schedule. The afternoons are wide open for anyone on this, anyone that's a listing specialist or a buyer agent. They can do however they want. If they want to be out of the office, in the office, setting whatever they want to do. But our mornings are very scheduled. Everyone's here at 8. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we spend 30 minutes reading. The books that we choose, we're all reading the same book together at all times, and we read the same chapter and then share ahas. So that's kind of a add value, help people learn and grow. And our rotation there is God, family, business. Like we'll read a book that's spiritual in nature, we'll read a book that's relational or family in nature, and then we'll read a book on business. So we're on a book that's helping us understand DISC under the family category right now, so we can do better in our personal relationships and obviously our business relationships too.
Good.
So that's 8 to 8:30. Tuesday mornings is our team meeting from 8 to 9. Thursday mornings we pray together from 8 to 8:30 for clients, for each other. Then 8:30 to 9 is scripting time for the salespeople. 9 o'clock, everyone's on the phones from 9 to noon. Noon, they call out their numbers, get those entered into our system, and then, they're the listing specialists and buyer's agents are free to do what they want to do. The ISAs take an hour break and come back and hit the phones for another 3 hours.
Well, and I think you just answered that tough question of what are the habits to succeed. You just said it. Have extremely purposeful morning. That's when you're the most purposeful. Get in your activities. Do the morning things that take care of yourself spiritually and mentally and physically, and those are the habits to succeed. What's the question that of not asked you or that you need to kind of wrap this whole thing out so that people can walk away and you've made a difference in their life in this half hour?
If I can, I mean, if there's something, if you're in real estate, gosh, begin with the end in mind. I took all of our team members through an activity late last year of creating a life plan. Some of them are still working on it, but the beginning of that life plan is identifying who your key constituents are in your life. Like for me, God, my wife, my children, my colleagues at work, my church, and when I die, how do I want to be remembered by those? So I've got a written document that covers that. I have a little packet that I carry with me all the time. It has my 411. It has that. And I review that thing regularly. I'm not saying daily, although I'd like it to be daily. I review it regularly of who do I want to be. And so that's the direction. That sets the, that again, backward informs everything else I do. Like and I say the end, I mean, obviously I believe in a God and I have a faith that believes that there's something after death.
Yep.
But when my time on this ball of mud is done, what do I want to be the legacy left behind? And that has informed everything. And without doing that, you're kind of flavor of the month. Life is leading you. You're not leading it.
Yep.
And it's really easy. If you think about take a compass and draw a straight line, and then move 1 degree and draw another line, and then extend those lines out as far as you can. You see how far apart they are. If someone's not living a life with their straight line, whatever their plumb line is that they're following, then they're getting pushed over a degree here, a degree there, and then all of a sudden, 30 years later, you're like, well, how did I end up here? Well, this 30 years of decisions compounded over time.
Yep.
And that's people that struggle with real estate. I mean, I remember when I first got in the business, before I got in, I was scanning several businesses. Do I want to get into pharmaceutical sales? Do I want to get into medical device sales? Is it insurance? Is it general, like securities brokerage? Is it commercial? Is it residential? And I sat down with this guy from my church who is a Merrill Lynch advisor. And he said, what's fascinating to me is I find that the people who are the most successful at anything are the ones that do it the longest amount of time. And I was like, you know what? That's good. So I got to pick one of these and commit. And if I'm really analytical, well, how do I know it's the right one before I commit? No, you just got to commit. And that if you commit, time on task over time is a phrase I learned later, of course, through Keller Williams.
Yep. That's
going to work for you. So it's committing in a direction, but if someone's got the luxury and will set aside the time, I mean, I'm frankly happy to mail out that life plan book, email out that life plan book to anybody who wants it. It's not going to do you a hill of beans good sitting in your inbox. You got to print it out and you got to follow the steps. When you follow the steps, and I've created my first life plan 4 years ago. Now, before that, I had plenty of stuff over the years of what I want to be, what do I want to do, what are my long-term goals. But when I did that, and now every year I review it, I've even got, like earlier this week, I take a quarterly review day. Earlier this week, I checked into a hotel at noon one day, and I was going to check out the next day at noon, and I spend the whole day just kind of going 10,000 foot.
Wow.
It was the first time I had done that, and it was so good. I went 10,000 foot. I spent some time in prayer. I reviewed my life plan. I reviewed the business vision. I set some goals for the next 90 days. Adjusted some things. There's some stuff relationally with my wife that I wanted to work on, so I wrote out some goals for that. And then I had like a good 6 hours to pound out projects that had just been left undone in the hubbub of the last few months. So I just pounded those out and got a ton done. And I'm going to do that quarterly, but it's a process. Remember, I wrote my first life plan. Like in the book that he talks about how to write the life plan, he talks about the life plan quarterly review process. Well, I wrote the life plan 4 years ago, but I've never done a quarterly review process until this. So it's,
What book is that?
It's a PDF actually. It's not even a book.
Okay.
I'll send it. I'll email it to you.
I think anyone who wants it, just email. Actually, you know what? Email it to me, Haro, and I'll send it out to everyone who's live on this phone call.
Yeah, I will.
That'll be perfect.
Yep.
Awesome.
So we got to wrap up. What other questions do we have?
I think we're gold. A lot of it is you've been answering it, or I've been plugging it in there. No, I certainly appreciate being on here, and it's what you say is so true, and it's funny. I still, looking back on the phone call, you really struggle with what habits do you have in place, and I think that shows how much that has become a habit, that you no longer have to think about doing things like the 4-on-1, like the morning team meetings, like taking care of God, family, business, like purposely planning your day. Once upon a time, those were disciplines. Now they're habits. You didn't even realize you're doing it, but you are. So kudos to you. Where are you going to be in 3 years from now?
3 years from now, our team here, that would be 2015, 16, 17, 700 units will be done by the end of 2017 for the year for the team here. We will have expanded to at least 2 locations by then. I'll probably be functionally out of the business day to day. We could do that by the end of this year. Actually,
You ready to roll? Go on to the next thing. So I would love to help you out any way I can. Of course, Orlando is a wonderful place to expand. So if we can be a partner for you there, as well as
we're going to be looking. So you and I will have conversations.
Absolutely. And then when you're down here, I would love to get you in front of the classroom, maybe teach some RSTLM and make a great session out of it. So thanks for being on here, guys. This will be recorded. In 2 weeks from today is going to be on March 12th. I'm going to be with Colton Lindsay. Colton's out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Colton is a script king. I had him on about 1.5 years ago. We'll be doing some live role-playing for FSBO's Expired. You can see single agent. He's on pace to close 92 deals as a single agent this year. Closed about 60 FSBOs in his first and last 3 years of real estate. So excited for that.
Awesome.
Anyone who wants to be on there, we'll do some live. We'll give him some objections, see how he handles it, find out what those disciplines are, and then always going on. Haro, who else should I be calling and talking to set up one of these interviews? Who's in your circle that I need to know?
You ever talk to Ashley Wilson?
I've not.
I love Ashley. She's built it, if not as fast, if not faster than me. She's about a year ahead of me.
Okay. Is she in your market?
She's in Raleigh.
Okay. I'll look her up and reach out.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, bud. I appreciate it again. And anyone else wants to take a look at this, there's my website. You can find me on there. We'll see you every second and fourth Thursday. Haro, thanks again. Have a great day, buddy.
Hey, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Hey, you bet. Take care.
Bye-bye.